I never thought the truth could hide so neatly inside a perfectly folded lie. My name is Ethan Wright. I grew up in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, with two loving parents, a golden retriever named Cooper, and an ordinary life marked by soccer games, summer vacations, and family dinners on Sundays. I never had a reason to question who I was or where I came from. My childhood wasn't perfect, but it was safe, and safe things don't ask questions, until one did. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The sky was gray, and I had taken the day off from work to renew my driver's license at the DMV. I had just turned 24. I stood in line, impatient like everyone else, scrolling through my phone, when the clerk called me up. She smiled, asked for my documents, and began entering the information into her computer. Then her smile faltered. "There seems to be a discrepancy," she said, squinting at the screen. "Your birth certificate. It doesn't have a hospital listed." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "No hospital name, no doctor signature, just the city and a printed time. That's odd. Most birth records include at least the facility." I shrugged. "Maybe it was a home birth?" She gave me a polite but puzzled look and handed the document back. I left with a temporary license and a mind full of questions. That night, I brought it up over dinner. My parents were seated across from me at the table, the same one we'd sat around for 2 decades. My mom was cutting roasted chicken, and my dad was telling a story about someone from his office. I interrupted gently. "Did I have a home birth?" They both stopped. My mom's hand froze mid-slice. My dad blinked twice, then cleared his throat. "Why would you ask that?" he said too casually. I held up the document. "DMV said there's no hospital listed on my birth certificate. No doctor either." Silence. My mom forced a smile. "Oh, honey, the hospital lost a lot of records in a flood. We've told you that before." They hadn't. Not once in my life had I heard that story. My dad nodded along. "It was chaos back then. You were born during a snowstorm. Paperwork got messed up." Their answers were rehearsed. Too clean, too quick. I knew a lie when I heard one, and suddenly I wasn't sure if anything I knew was real. I tried to ignore it for a few days. I told myself I was overreacting. Everyone's family has its secrets, but the feeling wouldn't go away. It gnawed at me while I worked, haunted me as I tried to sleep, followed me in every glance my parents exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking. I started digging. The first step was simple. I called the hospital they'd always told me I was born in, Riverfield Medical Center. The woman on the phone was polite. She asked for my name and birth date, then placed me on hold. After a few minutes, she came back. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wright. There's no record of an Ethan Wright born here on May 16th, 2001. I hung up, hands trembling. Next, I checked the state's vital records department. Same result. No official listing of my birth at any hospital in Oregon. My birth certificate, bare bones as it was, might as well have belonged to a ghost. I confronted my parents again. This time, they didn't try to deny it. They didn't say much at all. My mom cried. My dad stared at the floor. When I pressed them, my mother whispered, "We didn't want to lose you." It didn't make sense. What were they talking about? Lose me from what? That night I couldn't sleep. I searched every drawer, every closet, every dusty shoebox in the attic looking for answers. At 3:27 a.m., I found a folder. It was hidden beneath old tax files. Inside, a single document, folded and yellowed with time. It was a hospital report. I unfolded it slowly. At the top it read, "Newborn Mortality Report, issued by St. Mary's Hospital, May 16th, 2001. Infant, male, no name given. Declared deceased at 4 to 12 a.m. Cause, respiratory failure." My hands went numb. Below that, a nurse's name, an attending physician's signature, and a bold red stamp. Deceased. I wasn't supposed to be alive. According to this report, I had died on the same day I celebrated every year as my birthday. I sat in silence for hours, staring at that paper, trying to understand, trying to breathe. My entire body felt hollow. Had my parents stolen me? Had someone given me away? Why would a hospital declare a living child dead? And why the hell did no one ever tell me? The next day, I returned to the hospital listed in the report. St. Mary's, a now shuttered facility on the outskirts of Portland. It had closed down in 2004 after a corruption scandal involving mishandled patient records. I remembered reading something vague about it years ago. The building was empty, windows boarded up. But I wasn't looking for the hospital. I was looking for anyone who had worked there. It took hours of searching, but I eventually found a retired nurse listed on an alumni site. Her name was Teresa Ward. She had worked at St. Mary's for over 20 years, according to the profile. I called the number. It rang 5 times before a tired voice answered. Hello? Hi. My name is Ethan Wright. I think you were the nurse on duty when I was born. Silence. Then, what did you say your name was? Ethan. May 16th, 2001. St. Mary's Hospital. A pause, a shaky breath. You shouldn't be alive. My heart stopped. What do you mean? I remember that night, she said. There was a woman. She gave birth alone. No family. They told her the baby died, but Her voice cracked. I always suspected something wasn't right. I filed a report. They silenced it. Then I was told to stop asking questions. My stomach churned. What happened to the baby? Another pause. Some babies didn't die, Ethan. They were given away, sold to families who could pay. Everything went quiet. Even the air stopped moving. I hung up in a daze, my ears ringing, heart pounding. It felt like the floor beneath me had vanished. For 24 years, I had lived a life built on a single lie. One so perfect, so complete, that it took nothing short of fate to crack it open. And now, I wasn't just looking for answers. I was looking for the family that had spent years mourning a child they were told had died. I was looking for the truth, even if it shattered everything. The morning after I spoke with Nurse Ward, I felt like I'd aged a decade overnight. My mind spun in 1,000 directions, trying to stitch together a puzzle that didn't want to be solved. I sat at my kitchen table, the same place I used to eat cereal before school, now buried in papers, notes, and a single hospital report that said I had died. I stared at that word, deceased. It didn't feel like it belonged to me. It felt like a label meant for someone else, someone who had never taken their first breath. Yet here I was, alive, breathing, blinking at the light seeping in through the window. Blinds. How do you investigate your own death? I started with what little I had, the hospital report, the conversation with Nurse Ward, and my own birth certificate. I opened a spreadsheet and created a list of everyone I needed to find. Doctors, nurses, hospital staff from St. Mary's. But the place had shut down years ago, and many records were either sealed or destroyed. I managed to find a public archives database that listed employees involved in the 2004 scandal. A few names stood out. Dr. Leonard Miles, Chief of Pediatrics, Susan Kettering, Hospital Administrator, and Paul Riley, a security officer accused of forging visitor logs. I tracked down Dr. Miles first. He now lived in a retirement home in California. I called 3 times. No answer. On the 4th, someone picked up. A nurse. Doctor, Miles doesn't take calls anymore, she said. His memory isn't what it used to be. That lead went cold. Next was Susan Kettering. She had vanished from public life. No social media, no property records, nothing. As if she'd been erased. But Paul Riley, he was still local. I found a P.O. box registered under his name in the city. I wrote him a letter, handwritten, personal, and desperate. Mr. Riley, my name is Ethan Wright. I was born at St. Mary's Hospital on May 16th, 2001. According to hospital records, I died that day. But I'm alive. I need answers. I believe you know something. Please. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just want the truth. Ethan. A week passed. No response. Then, just as I was about to give up, a small envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper, typed in courier font. Stop digging. You're not supposed to exist. I froze. My heart pounded so loud it echoed in my ears. I read the note again and again. It wasn't denial. It wasn't confusion. It was a warning. That's when I realized this wasn't just a lie. It was a cover-up. If someone had gone through this much effort to bury the truth, then what I had uncovered so far was only the surface. I revisited Nurse Ward. I brought her coffee, sat down across from her in her modest living room, and asked her everything. Do you remember the mother? I asked. She closed her eyes. Yes, she was young, maybe 19, poor. She kept crying, "Don't take him from me," over and over. Do you know her name? She shook her head. They took her chart, the men in suits. After the birth, they took everything. I leaned in. Do you think she's still out there? I hope so, she said. She loved you. I could see it, even if she only held you for a minute. That broke me. I spent the next few days at the local library, scanning newspaper archives from May 2001. I didn't find anything under my name, obviously, but then I thought, what if I searched for infant deaths around that date? There it was, buried in the back pages of a local paper. Tragedy at St. Mary's. Young mother loses baby hours after birth. Staff offer condolences. Family declines to comment. No names, no photo. But the date matched, the timeline matched. I wrote down the journalist's name. She still worked at a small magazine across town. When I visited her office, she was surprised anyone remembered that story. That piece barely made print, she said. Back then, St. Mary's tried to keep things quiet. Do you remember the mother? She looked at me, narrowed her eyes. You're the baby, aren't you? I nodded. Her face went pale. She came to me once, a year later, said she didn't believe the hospital, said her baby was breathing, crying, that they just took him. I swallowed hard. Do you know her name? She pulled open a filing cabinet, rummaged through it, pulled out a file. Her name was Claire Monroe. My mother, the woman who mourned me, the woman who never stopped looking. And now, I had a name, a place to start. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about finding her. The woman who never stopped loving a child she was told had died. Me. The name Claire Monroe echoed in my head for days. I stared at it, wrote it down again and again, said it out loud when no one was around, testing the shape of it on my tongue. My mother. A name, a real one. Not just a theory, or a file, or a guess. A living person who had mourned me, searched for me, and likely cried over a grave that never held my body. It took me 3 days to find her. I tracked down an address from a decades-old utility record linked to the name. The house was a modest, one-story building in a weathered part of town about 2 hours from where I lived. The neighborhood was quiet. Faded paint, chain-link fences, plastic toys on porches. I parked across the street and stared for a long time, my hands glued to the steering wheel. What do you say to someone who believes you've been dead for 24 years? Eventually, I walked up and knocked. The door opened, just a crack at first, then more. She was older, of course. Her hair was streaked with gray, tied back in a bun. Her eyes, brown and heavy with time, narrowed as she looked at me. Yes? My name is Ethan, I said, my voice shaking. Ethan Wright. I think I'm your son. Her hand flew to her mouth. She didn't speak, not for 10 seconds, 20. Her eyes began to water, and her knees buckled just enough that she had to grip the doorframe. Oh my God, she whispered. I don't remember much after that. Just arms around me, just sobs against my shoulder, just the feeling of something broken finally falling into place. We talked for hours. She didn't stop staring at me, as if looking away might make me vanish again. She told me about the night I was born, how she screamed when they took me away, how no one explained anything, how they told her I had stopped breathing and she had begged to see me, to hold me one last time. They refused. They wouldn't even let me say goodbye, she said. She had tried to fight it, filed complaints, went to journalists, but no one listened. The hospital denied everything, told her she was confused, grieving. Eventually she stopped trying. I always knew, she said, somewhere deep down. I knew you weren't gone. It was overwhelming. We cried, we laughed. She showed me old photos, newspaper clippings, a tiny blanket she had kept all these years. It was faded and torn, but she had folded it carefully and placed it in a shoebox like a shrine. This was yours, she said, pressing it into my hands. I didn't know what to say. And then I realized, if she never gave me up, someone else had taken me, someone had sold me, and that someone had a name. The next step was obvious. I had to confront the people who raised me. I returned home a day later. My adoptive parents were in the kitchen, talking about nothing. I walked in and dropped the blanket on the table. My mother looked at it, then at me. "Where did you get that?" "She gave it to me," I said. "Who?" "My mother." Her face went pale. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked, "How did I end up with you?" My father stood, fists clenched. "We saved you." "From what?" I said. "A mother who loved me? A woman who never stopped looking for me?" My mother cried. My father didn't. He finally sat down and told me everything. They couldn't have children. They'd tried for years. Then one day, someone came to them with an offer, a private adoption, no questions asked, a donation required. "We didn't know," my mother sobbed. "They told us your mother died in childbirth. We didn't ask for proof. We just wanted you." My father stayed quiet. "You knew," I said. He nodded. I felt sick. I left that night. Back at Claire's, she welcomed me like I had never left. She offered me the couch, made tea, and watched me as if I were still a baby she needed to protect. The air between us wasn't awkward. It was instinctive, like we were making up for lost time with every breath. "I want to find out who did this," I said. She nodded. "So do I." I contacted a private investigator the next day. I gave him everything: names, dates, the note I received, even the list of old hospital staff. He promised to dig. While he investigated, I started meeting Claire's side of the family. Cousins, an uncle, even a grandmother who cried the moment she saw me. They embraced me without hesitation. For the first time, I saw who I might have been. Not the Ethan Wright who lived in Portland's suburbs, but the Ethan who could have grown up surrounded by these people. Real family, the life I lost, the life I was stolen from. And soon, I was going to find out who took it from me. The private investigator called me 2 weeks later. His voice was low and serious, like someone about to drop a bomb. "I found something," he said. "You might want to sit down." I was already sitting, heart pounding, fingers clenched around the phone. "Go ahead." The adoption wasn't just illegal. It was orchestrated. I blinked. "What do you mean?" There was a network, a ring of private adoptions arranged under the table. Wealthy couples who couldn't adopt through the system were offered newborns from desperate or isolated mothers. Often, the mothers were told their babies died at birth. My throat tightened. I had suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed was different. And the hospital? St. Mary's was involved, several staff members. It's why they shut it down. Someone finally blew the whistle in 2004. But by then, most of the records had been destroyed. Do you know who took me? Who signed me over? A pause. Susan Kettering, the hospital administrator. She forged documents and coordinated with families. She disappeared after the scandal, changed her name. My mind raced. Where is she now? Living in a rural area in Montana under the name Susan Blake. I can get you an address. I thanked him and hung up. 3 days later, I was on a flight to Montana. The address led me to a small cabin near a forest. I approached with a pounding heart and 1,000 questions. When she answered the door, she was older but unmistakably the woman from the photo I'd found in the hospital archives. Her face dropped the moment she saw me. "You're him," she whispered. "Yes, I'm Ethan. I suppose you're here for answers." "I'm here for the truth." She stepped aside and let me in. The cabin was simple, clean, pictures of landscapes on the walls, a pot of tea steaming on the stove. It didn't look like the home of someone who had destroyed lives, and yet it was. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she began, "but I was told it was better this way. These women, most of them were alone, poor, addicted. Their babies were going to suffer, or so I was told." "Claire Monroe wasn't an addict," I snapped. "She was scared and alone, and you stole her son." She looked down. "We believed we were saving you. You were selling us." The silence in that cabin felt heavier than bricks. She didn't deny it, didn't justify it further. Maybe she couldn't. Before I left, I asked her one final question. "Why me?" "Because someone paid more for a boy." That stayed with me all the way back to Oregon. When I returned, Claire met me at the airport. She didn't ask questions, she just hugged me. We drove in silence for a while, until she finally said, "What will you do now?" And I didn't have an answer. I had 2 lives. One was built on lies and comfort, the other on pain and truth. My adoptive parents wanted to talk. They'd called, sent messages, even begged. Part of me wanted to scream at them, another part just wanted to disappear. Claire never pushed. She gave me space, time, love without conditions. One morning I walked into the kitchen and told her, "I'm staying." She didn't cry, she just nodded, then poured us both a cup of coffee. Later that day, I sent a letter to my adoptive parents. "I don't hate you, but I can't pretend anymore. I have a right to my truth, and I'm choosing to live it. Goodbye." Months passed. I changed my name legally to Ethan Monroe, got a job nearby, started spending holidays with people who felt like home. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. Sometimes I still wondered who I would have been if none of this had happened. But most nights, I just closed my eyes, knowing I was exactly where I was meant to be, with the mother who never stopped loving me, and with a name that finally felt like mine.